Welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Comfort Fashion, and my sign language interpreter is Josiah Abdullahi. Let's start with the headlines. Nigeria and Ghana strengthen ties against drug traffickers. West and Central Africa map out new collaboration in maritime education. Plus, Guyana and Venezuela square off over gold and oil-rich Essequibo in historic court cases. Federal government says arrangements are underway to evacuate Nigerians from South Africa following renewed anti-foreigner tensions in parts of the country. Garba Muhammad Ata'ala reports that 130 Nigerians have so far registered with Nigerian missions for voluntary evacuation.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says it is monitoring the situation on hourly basis and stays in contact with Nigerian missions in South Africa, and it also emphasizes voluntary evacuation. It identified Jacinta Zuma and Operation Dudula as groups linked to anti-foreigner attacks to seek justice for deceased victims.
South African government, to be fair to them, the government official position is that they are not in support of the protests. But if those that are carrying out the attacks are not punished, are not questioned, are not stopped, that means like indirectly you are allowing them to do whatever they are doing.
The ministry also stressed on the activation of an early warning system to prevent escalation of such crises.
This early warning mechanism would have a system whereby the two sides will be asking each other very difficult practical questions on how to go about these issues.
The issue of attacks on Nigerians was earlier raised in talks between Nigeria's Permanent Secretary, Ambassador Umar Ahmed Dunama, and South Africa's Acting High Commissioner, Lisoli Mashile. The ministry further says registration for evacuation is ongoing at Nigeria's High Commission in Pretoria and the Consulate in Johannesburg. It advised Nigerians to avoid protest flashpoints and to remain law-abiding. The first batch will be flown home once logistics and landing permits are finalized. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Ta'ala, NTA News.
Also, the ECOWAS Parliament sitting in Abuja has expressed concern over reports on killing of West African citizens in the Sahel and recent xenophobic attacks of some Nigerians in South Africa. This is coming in a motion of urgent public importance raised by the third Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Alexander Efonio Markin. ECOWAS Parliament correspondent Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports.
The third Speaker, who was guided by Rule 71 of the procedure of the Parliament, which provides for personal statement of public interest, brought the issue of xenophobic attacks in South Africa.
Ghanaians, Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Ethiopians, and other African nationals have been attacked, looted, displaced, and killed. The Nigerian consulate in Johannesburg has confirmed the death of 2 citizens.
The Parliament demands accountability and protection, as well as ECOWAS civilian protection frameworks that will cover business operators from other countries. In another development, 3 member states of Ghana, the Gambia, and Cote d'Ivoire presented their reports before the Parliament, focusing on political situation, access to justice, good governance, and rule of law, among others.
The agricultural productivity in the Gambia is worsened by climate-related shocks that damage crops and land. They pose on a serious threat to livelihood. Agriculture contributes approximately 25% of the country's GDP.
Ghana faces a growing security challenge linked to the spillover of jihadist insurgency from the Sahel, particularly from Burkina Faso. Reports indicate that militant groups have used part of northern Ghana for logistic support in connection with Sahel-based insurgencies.
The session was adjourned to next legislative day. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
The Nigerian Technical Aid Corps, NTAC, is strengthening and forging stronger ties with many Caribbean and Pacific countries through a series of international engagements. To this end, the Director General, Dr. Yusuf Buba Yakub, is leading a high-level delegation from the agency to Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados and Grenada. The move is to concretize earlier discussions with foreign affairs, education and health authorities in those countries to advance Nigeria's soft power diplomacy through deployment of Nigerian experts as volunteers to assist the development of key sectors of benefiting countries, which is cardinal aspect of President Bola Tinubu's 4D foreign policy objectives. In Trinidad and Tobago, the NTAC delegation was received by the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Sean Sobers, who expressed delight at the partnership, describing it as a practical demonstration of Nigeria's commitment to the spirit of South-South cooperation. His counterpart in Grenada, Joseph Andali, highlighted the positive impact of the NTAC scheme in Grenada and reaffirmed his ministries for further collaboration. While in Barbados, discussions focused on building institutional partnerships, enhancing capacity development and promoting sustainable, mutually beneficial cooperation, as emphasized by that country's Ministers of Education Transformation, Sandra Husbands. The NTAC delegation was accompanied by officials of the Nigerian embassies in the respective countries. Nigeria will continue to prioritize the needs of victims of conflict and disaster in line with global standards. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this when he received a delegation from the International Committee of the Red Cross in Nigeria, led by Doris Eldoiha, on a courtesy visit to the presidential villa. A State House correspondent, Abdurrahman Jabrila, reports that the Vice President commended the ICRC for its professionalism and commitment to the ideals of a peaceful and just society, especially in areas plagued by armed conflict and related vices. He welcomed the proposal to establish a national mechanism for humanitarian response, particularly in managing the plight of victims of armed conflict, noting that the federal government is willing to collaborate with the ICRC to establish a framework for Nigeria. Leader of the delegation, Doris Eldoihi, commended Nigeria for domesticating the Kampala Convention for the protection and assistance of internally displaced persons in Africa, describing the country as a leader and model in Africa.
In the last few years, we all saw that the humanitarians are suffering from a lack of funding and a lack of interest sometimes in some conflict. And today, together with the government of Nigeria, we are discussing the way the government can step in and reinforce its response to the humanitarian crisis. Unfortunately, the needs are big, and today the collaboration and the coordination is the answer. So we are in the middle of this, all together, going towards the same aim, which is responding to the humanitarian need and alleviating the suffering.
The visit was in acknowledgement of the organization's healthy diplomatic relations with Nigeria over the years, describing Nigeria as a leader in the continent and a partner in advancing the cause of humanitarian support across conflict zones in the areas of health, water, and training of security personnel. Nigeria and Ghana strengthen ties against drug trafficking cartels. The NDLEA is hosting Ghana's Narcotic Control Commission on a study tour of its operational model. Salwa Khalil Ibrahim reports.
The threats posed by transnational organized crime, particularly drug trafficking, and its associated money laundering activities knows no border. This partnership between Nigeria and Ghana's anti-narcotic agencies is with the common goal of fighting illicit substances and traffickers.
We are effectively narrowing the space for criminal cartels to operate within our sub-region. This visit is more than a study tour. It is a strategic alignment. We must together trace those behind it, break the bones of those cartels, put the barons behind bars where they belong, and seize all their assets.
A delegation from Narcotic Control Commission of Ghana, NACOC, led by its Director General, Brigadier General Maxwell Abuba Mante, is a benchmarking visit and study tour of NDLEA operational model to share ideas and exchange experience on how to take the bull by the horn.
Looking ahead, I believe we must also begin to think beyond just Ghana and Nigeria. There's a clear and urgent need for a more coordinated regional approach, one where our agencies are better aligned, where intelligence flows more seamlessly across borders, and where we are able to collectively disrupt criminal networks at scale.
These new collaboration, both parties agree, should serve as a warning to drug cartels who seek to destabilize the West African sub-region with illicit drugs, that there is no hiding place. In Abuja, Salwa Khalil Ibrahim, NTA News.
West and Central Africa countries are mapping out new collaboration to strengthen regional identity in maritime education and training. This is coming as Nigeria plays host to the inaugural exchange visit to the Maritime Academy of Nigeria, or run by the Maritime Organization of West and Central Africa. Let's have Clement Barakwi for more of the story.
About 90% of West and Central African trade is carried by sea, yet the capacity to fully harness the benefit of this vast domain depends largely on the quality of human capital being developed in the region. This is why delegations of maritime institutions from the member states of the Maritime Organization of West and Central Africa are here. The inaugural visit with the theme Advancing Maritime Education and Training across West and Central Africa aims at harmonizing curricular and training standards, promote faculty and student exchanges, as well as develop joint certification programs that align with international standards, among others.
MOCA remains firmly committed to supporting initiatives that enhance maritime capacity and institutional collaboration across our member states.
Nigeria is already on the path of the blue economic growth, and the Maritime Academy of Nigeria, ORON, is properly positioned to provide the needed manpower for the actualization of the potentials of the marine and blue economy.
By aligning our curricula, share best practices and fostering mutual recognition, we lay foundation for a stronger, more integrated regional maritime workforce.
The MOCA strategic initiative aligns with the strategic development plan of the Maritime Academy of Nigeria.
The delegations from the Regional Maritime University, Accra, Ghana, the Regional Academy of Marine Science and Technology, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, as well as other maritime industry players agree on the need for a stronger collaboration for a stronger blue economy in the region. Clement Barikui, NTA News.
The federal government has reiterated determination to make the environment conducive for the practice of midwifery in the country to ensure no woman dies in the process of bringing life. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Muhammad Ali Party, said this in Abuja at a press briefing to mark the International Day of the Midwife. The minister, who was represented by the Director, Hospital Services, Dr. Abisola Adegoke, noted that midwives remain the backbone of maternal and reproductive health care, providing essential services ranging from antenatal care to safe delivery and postnatal support.
Provide optimal maternal and child health services without having an adequate number of skilled midwives.
Nigeria is facing a challenge. What is it? We are facing a shortage of over 30,000 midwives. That is why we are finding ourselves where we are.
This year's commemoration, speakers noted, came at a time global health systems continue to grapple with maternal and neonatal mortality, particularly in low and middle income countries like Nigeria. The theme for this year's celebration is 1 million more midwives, highlighting the urgent global shortage of midwives and advocating increased investment in training, fair play, safer work conditions and retention to meet maternal and neonatal needs. Stay with us on the news while we take a break. We'll be back with more news. The International Court of Justice, ICJ, has launched the first hearing in The Hague in the long-standing dispute between Guyana and Venezuela over the Essequibo region, abundant in gold, diamond, timber and close major offshore oil deposits. Francis Udajo tells us more.
Following the hearing, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Juan Eduardo Gil Pinto defended his country's historical sovereignty over Essequibo, accusing the other side of false arguments and attempts to manipulate at a press conference. Juan Eduardo Gil Pinto said, and I quote, "Nothing that has been presented in this court contradicts Venezuela's rights. There has been no doubt cast on the fact that the territory of Guyana Essequibo is Venezuelan. No court, no multilateral international system can call this into question." End of quote. The United Nations top court will focus on the legitimacy of the 1899 arbitral award issued by a tribunal in Paris, which established the current border between the two neighboring nations. Caracas maintains that negotiations with the UK, the Guyana's colonial master under the 1966 Geneva Agreement, have nullified the 1899 ruling. Guyanese Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Hugh Hilton Todd, described the case as of existential importance, stressing that Essequibo accounts for about 2/3 of Guyana's territory.
Guyana has suffered and continues to suffer greatly from Venezuela's unlawful claim to threats to the majority of our territory. This has been a blight on our existence as a sovereign state from the very beginning of our existence.
Francis Sudojo, NT News.
Spain said it will not decide where to let a cruise ship with hantavirus cases dock until epidemiological data had been analyzed. The Health Ministry statement, which came on a media post, came shortly after World Health Organization Epidemic and Pandemic Preparedness Director Maria van Kerkhove said in Geneva that the ship would head for the Canary Island. Francis Odoja again tells us more.
Official from Spain's Health Ministry says, based on the epidemiological data collected from the ship during its stopover in Cape Verde, it will be deciding which port of call is most appropriate. Until then, the Ministry of Health will not take any decision, as it has informed the World Health Organization. Earlier, the Vice President of the island's regional government, Manuel Dominguez, said he preferred that the ship go straight to mainland Spain because it had greater resources to handle stricken vessel. Manuel, in an interview, noted that if it does not have to be in the Canary Islands, then that would be better, because there may be other resources on the mainland, adding that any decision taken should be with all possible guarantees. The MV Honduras, carrying 149 people from 23 different nationalities, including passengers from Britain, Spain, and the United States, and crew from the Philippines had experienced health crisis. 3 deaths have been confirmed among those on board the cruise, which earlier en route from Ushuaia, Argentina to Cape Verde. While 1 British passenger is in intensive care in Johannesburg, and 2 crew members, 1 British and 1 Dutch, required urgent medical attention, the WHO reported that currently no other symptomatic individuals are on the ship, though this is being closely monitored. Meanwhile, WHO official has confirmed that the ship would head for the Canary Islands. Francis Udojo, NT News.
Right, let's take you to the Temple of Justice. High Court of the Federal Capital Territory has ordered the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, to pay 100 million naira in damages to 2 operatives of the Department of State Services, DSS, for defamation. Judiciary correspondent Austin Ayambe reports.
The judgment stems from a 5.5 billion naira defamation lawsuit filed by the DSS operatives Sarah John and Gabriel Ogundele regarding allegations that the DSS invaded SERAP's office in September 2024. SERAP was alleged on X handle that DSS officials illegally occupied their Abuja office and harassed their staff, calling President Tinubu to call them to order. In a lawsuit, the 2 DSS personnel claimed these allegations were false and damaged their personal reputations. Justice Yusuf Halilu, in his judgment, chronicled their argument in the matter and held that SERAP's publication was libelous and injurious to the claimants, as the organization failed to challenge evidence presented by the claimants. After resolving all the issues against the defendants, he made the following pronouncement. First, awarded 100 million naira damages to the DSS operatives, an additional 1 million naira to be paid to the operatives as litigation cost. SERAP is also to publish apologies to the DSS operatives in 2 national newspapers, 2 television stations, and on their website. He also ordered that 10% annual interest is to be paid on the damages until full liquidation. DSS operatives argued that the visit to SERAP's office was a routine, lawful engagement with the NGO's new leadership and that no invasion or physical assault occurred. Counsel to the DSS described the judgment as one that would check ways people and organizations use the social media and traditional media to defame people. In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NT News.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, in collaboration with key development partners, have agreed on a joint roadmap and implementation plan for the Accelerated Value Chain Program in northern Nigeria. Kelvin Ehonwai reports that stakeholders are now scaling up the program with a capacity building for implementing officials on climate resilience for agri-food systems transformation in the 9 benefiting states in northern Nigeria. Led by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and other stakeholders, the training focused on actualization of the tenets of the climate risk and vulnerability assessment, a CRAVA, to get the best out of the first disbursement.
Food security actually is very important, but a lot of people, farmers who produce food, they're dependent, many of them are dependent upon rainfall, particularly natural rainfall. But climate change is affecting the variability of the rainfall. So the risk that climate poses to food is quite high. It affects production, it affects harvest, it affects a lot of things. So this, by ensuring that the issues of climate and the risk posed by climate to food security is well known, is well calculated, and we build resilience and antidote and think of adaptation to these challenges, then food can be robust, food production can be more robust.
Representatives from the Federation Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, as well as those from benefiting states, are attending the training. The Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Healthcare Value Chain, PVAC, has convened a multi-stakeholder meeting in Abuja to strengthen Nigeria's healthcare system. Their engagements, held in collaboration with Caring Cross, a non-profit organization, focuses on expanding access to advanced therapies such as cell and gene treatments for diseases including HIV, cancer and genetic conditions. The forum brings together private sector players and key stakeholders to explore practical, market-driven solutions for local manufacturing.
Get together with stakeholders in order to try to find a common understanding of the resources that would be needed to implement cellular gene therapies here in Nigeria.
What do we need to do as a country to bring these very important solutions? The solutions are very innovative. These are solutions that are very costly. They cost in the low millions of dollars, but within the research and the capabilities of Caring Cross, they're able to bring down the cost of production if you can produce locally to about $20,000 to $30,000, for example, for gene therapy for sickle cell disease.
All right, before we go, let's take a look at Wednesday's weather prospects for Nigeria and other major cities around the world. And this is where we end the news. For at this time, I am Comfort Fashion, and my sign language interpreter has been Josiah Abdullahi.